In fiction novels, it's easy to create a character who has a ghost-like vagueness of identity because, in the absence of a physical description, the reader has to conjure up an image of the character from the archetypes of their own subconscious. With movies, this is more difficult. It can work well with masked characters like Darth Vader or Michael Myers, but most of the time the presence of an actor's visible face and physical stature speaks volumes about the person they're playing. Clint Eastwood's squint-eyed, heavy-lined, teeth-baring face tells us a lot about his character before he even says a single word, and inevitably the same thing was going to happen with Scorpio. Actually, the choice of who to cast as Scorpio bears even greater a transformational effect, because the scripted version of him is largely a blank slate to begin with. He's a sadistic criminal, but there's not much more to him in the script. Once such a character is visually manifested on screen in the form of an actor, a myriad of implications are made about him, whether the filmmakers intended or not. His height and physical build, his choice of clothes and how he wears them, his hairstyle, his beard or lack of one, the way he walks, his posture, the contours of his forehead, his complexion and skin tone, the size, shape and colour of his eyes, the formation and cleanliness of his teeth. All these details, among more, tell us something about the character. And that's why an actor's physical looks count for so much in any instance of film casting. The blank slate element of Scorpio meant that whoever played the role would massively impact audience perception. Scorpio could not remain a million faces rolled into one, as the script put it. It's human nature to draw a complex set of character inferences from even the quickest glance at another human being, and so the role was a golden opportunity for an actor to add complexity and nuance. Imagine if Scorpio were played by Dustin Hoffman. He'd seem totally different, wouldn't he? Or how about if he was played by, say, James Woods, or Steve McQueen, or even Woody Allen? Fortunately, we got a then unknown actor, Andy Robinson, in the role, so that we had very little previous associations with previous roles, and he was incredible as Scorpio. Morality of the screen character aside, the acting performance of Andy Robinson as Scorpio has been universally acclaimed. I've come across no written or spoken opinions in which Robinson's suitability for the role is questioned, not even by the film's haters. And yet much has been said by the actor himself about how his career was severely limited due to negative associations to his Scorpio role. The character was so disturbing and well acted that many, including so-called industry professionals, couldn't emotionally distinguish Robinson from the role that he'd played. That's how good his performance in this film is. The performance is even better for the fact that Andy Robinson is a fairly normal-looking guy. He lacks the larger-than-life facial presence of Clint Eastwood, and he's neither tall nor muscular. However, Robinson has one unique physical feature that is used to incredible effect in this film. Like Eastwood, Robinson has unique eyes. I wouldn't say his eyes look evil by default, but he knows how to use his unusual eyes to make himself look truly menacing. And when he wears a balaclava, his acting eyes are even more powerful.
Oh no, you lift that hand once more, and I won't let you know who the girl is. Don't pass out on me yet, you rotten oinker!
Incidentally, I don't think Clint Eastwood ever played a traditional villain in his whole career, not that I've seen anyway, but I wish he had, because with that unique squint he could have been a terrifying psychopath. Anyway, that's off point. It's amazing that Robinson's Scorpio performance is a strong enough presence to match the tall, granite-faced Clint Eastwood. And it's not just about the ability to act evil, creepy, or in physical pain, as is demanded by the simplistic script version of the character. It's about adding a complex set of expressive physical habits which collectively imply a tapestry of underlying beliefs, values and motivations. Great actors have an instinctive understanding of this non-verbal language. Credit to Clint Eastwood, it was he who picked Andy Robinson out and recommended him for the role because of his angel-like face, as Clint put it. Robinson certainly brings a childlike vibe to the role. Scorpio was scripted to be in his 30s, but Robinson always looked to me to be in his mid-20s, which changes the implications about the character's history. As far as I can tell, Clint liked the innocent childlike appearance of Robinson because it would be the kind of face that a psychopath could sneakily hide behind. Scorpio is a compulsive liar, and so why not have his face be a lie in itself, a demon within an angelic face? I think the large size of Robinson's eyes are what make him look childlike, but also he is clean-shaven for the whole movie. He's physically scruffy, and so we should expect at least a bit of stubble, but that consistently clean-shaven look makes him seem prepubescent, a boy killer. He's also slim and not too tall. Again, this makes him seem boyish. Here, one of the cop characters calls him a boy.
What's up? Another note from our boy.
Boy as in not a man. And an easy-to-miss element is that Andy Robinson has an unusual voice that has a boyish or teenage edge to it.
Where is she?
You're trying to kill me! I have the right for a life!
Where's the girl?
I'm supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and just look at what they did to me.
The big kid physical appearance of Robinson, I think, adds several extra dynamics. It gives the impression that he has the selfishness, immaturity and impulsiveness of an undisciplined boy, perhaps a boy who was once used to getting what he wants on demand, and so, as an adult, he still feels entitled to have any cravings satisfied, regardless of how it affects others, especially his sexual and violent cravings. Like an immature child, he seems to lack awareness or concern for the consequences of his actions, like he is living in a kid's dream world. Especially this is present in the moment of his death. He actually laughs in a moment where he should be terrified. His actions toward actual children in the story make him seem like an extreme version of a school bully. And of course all of this holds sly implications about his personal history, the personal history that the script tries not to give us. He seems like a boy who lacked any kind of strong and disciplining father figure, and perhaps his mother was violent to him until he grew old enough to physically dominate her back, as often happens, or at least as often happens with serial killers. His attacks on children could be based in part on having been bullied and humiliated by other kids when he was younger, or he may have been treated like this by his own parents. The classic child see, child do pattern. Something obviously happened to him, and note that it's a kid asking for his mother that sparks violence from Scorpio.
You want to go? Get off right here, huh?
I want to go on the
What?
I want to go on the
You want to go home and see what? Sorry, sing!
Maybe the simple mention of mother is a sore point for him. In the moments that follow this first slap, Robinson gives an unhinged series of threats that weren't in the script. Director Don Siegel apparently told him to go wild, and this is what he came up with, a brilliant piece of what appears to be ad-libbing. And mixed in there is a threat to kill all the children's mothers.
Oh, Ron, you can't show all your mothers are gonna die in Oxford City! I'm gonna kill all your mothers, so I'm threatening you! Ron!
It's known in real life among profilers that serial killers frequently have severely dysfunctional relationships with their mothers. Ed Kemper and Lawrence Bittaker are real examples, and we have the classic fictional Norman Bates as a well-known cinematic example. What I love about Andy Robinson's performance in moments like this is that through ad-libbing and the minutiae of physical expression, he is effectively rewriting the script to give the character more believability and to make him more interesting. For example, it was his idea to make Scorpio flip over when he is shot in the leg. It was his idea to have Scorpio slide down a railing here, and funnily enough, isn't that the kind of thing a child would do? Reminds me of a slippery snake as well. And apparently, he did all his own stunts in the film. Not all actors have the ad-libbing ability. Those who do it well are basically unofficial screenwriters. Actual writers spend hours thinking up and typing dialogue lines, and yet a great actor can get themselves so much into the character mindset that they can write new dialogue and physical actions on the fly. Andy Robinson has that skill to the point that in another role of his that I love in the movie Hellraiser, he personally on set came up with the greatest line of the movie. Being torn apart by magical hooks, he was supposed to just say, "Fuck you," to the girl who sees his plight, but Robinson came up with an absolute killer line that even the best of screenwriters would have been proud of.
Jesus wept.
Good actors do a good job of acting out what is already written, but great actors write additional layers to the character in their head and make it manifest in ways that satisfyingly go beyond what was scripted, but without contradicting it too much. The childlike framing of the character wasn't in the script, but in the film I think it gives some credibility. As if Scorpio was still mentally stuck at the phase in childhood where kids should be told that no means no and tantrums of violence won't be tolerated. Even the issue of nursery rhymes seems to hold significance in this scene. Right before Scorpio flies off the handle, the bus enters a dark tunnel with a child's rainbow arch around it. The shot even makes sure to get the other rainbow arch in on the left. When he then flies off the handle, Scorpio seems to age regress. Screaming at them to row, row, row your boat, he actually starts smiling and laughing as if he has momentarily gone back in time to his own childhood.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily.
It's one of the best pieces of acting I've ever seen, and like I said earlier, Robinson expanded it beyond what was in the script. And it makes me ask, what kind of nursery rhyme experiences did Scorpio encounter when he was a kid? Was he screamed at and smacked and made to sing what he didn't want to sing? Did he want his mother but she was never there? We don't know. As a side note, I think it's worth a mention that very few movies ever show children being traumatised like this. I think the scene delved into the dark subject matter of adult violence toward children, but it pulled back just in time before it became too uncomfortable to watch. A whopping irony regarding the Dirty Harry script is that, just as the script calls Scorpio a Mr. Nobody in scene 87, real serial killers and spree killers often are taking revenge on a world which they think sees them as Mr. Nobody. How many times has the lone spree killer left a suicide note or a diary of ramblings about how a world that ignored them will pay the price and will finally pay attention and never forget them? They'd rather be remembered and hated as a demon than not be remembered at all.
Scorpio strikes again. They like that feeling.
Don't get me wrong, they're still scumbags for going on a crazy spree murder rampage, but the irony is still there in the Dirty Harry script. It tries to present Scorpio as not being worthy of being part of the human race, but such an attitude from society toward an individual can be what creates such a character to begin with. Scorpio's emphasised pride and ego and his desire to control, dominate and humiliate are a compensation for his Mr. Nobody status. His very crimes, as scripted even before Robinson was cast, imply those kinds of deep-rooted problems. If all he wanted was money, then he could have been very professional about it and just took the ransom money that was delivered. But expressing a sense of superiority over others seems to be his fundamental drive. It's what gets him killed in this film. He was basically on the verge of getting $100,000 here, and he blew it for the sake of ego. Psychosexual issues are no doubt a problem for him. By shooting an attractive figured woman from a distance in a swimming pool, is he committing a subconscious act of rape? And the choice of victim type seems to suggest that. Later on, he actually rapes a girl he abducts and is seen in a strip bar later on after that. And one of the very few character-related props in the groundskeeper's accommodation, where he lives, is soft porn pictures. Sexual frustration and sexual inadequacy are no doubt part of his mindset. Speaking of Scorpio's accommodation, poverty is something that he has likely lived with all his life, and he probably smells bad considering he wears the same clothes all the time. The choice of a brown sweater gives him a dirty appearance. Also associated to poverty is his poor spelling in his ransom note. It suggests that he's had a poor education. An interesting thing about this is that in the novelisation, Scorpio's note consists of individual letters cut out from newspaper clippings and glued to the page to form words, which is a much more careful way to create a ransom note. But in the film, by showing us Scorpio's handwriting, we are given assorted implications about his personality. The big words and large spaces between them suggest a bold, impulsive person, not one preoccupied with fine detail or trying to make a subtle impression. The misspelling of words, which are then scribbled out instead of starting the whole letter over again, suggests the same thing, a somewhat disorganised and impulsive person. And the harsh back and forth scribbles across the misspelled words to me are a hint of his tendency toward violence. His misspelling the word personal, that's quite interesting. And the fact that he doesn't use lined paper is fitting too. He's not a guy who follows society's rules anyway. He even seems to struggle to keep his words within the boundaries of the page itself, because the first word he scribbles out, the word thousands, appears to have been scribbled over because he was about to write off of the edge of the page. And there are individual spaces between the letters of each word instead of joined up writing. Did he do that to disguise his natural handwriting, or because he never actually learned to do joined up writing at school? Whichever crew member thought out and wrote this prop letter, I think they did a pretty good job on it, quite clever. Given the implications of a poverty background, it naturally follows that Scorpio has a class system gripe too. When Harry announces on the phone he's a police officer, Scorpio goes silent for a moment.
What are you? Police officer? Hello?
And in a follow-up conversation he calls him a pig.
Hubba, pig bastard.
Standard class gripe slang. There was also an alternate version of the script by Terrence Malick in which Scorpio is a vigilante who targets and kills rich people who are known for corruption. I read about half of that script, but I didn't really find it engaging, and it was extremely different to what we get in the actual movie. Andy Robinson has stated that he thought of Scorpio as a veteran of the Vietnam War who was psychologically messed up by his tour of duty. I think that's probably more to do with Robinson's personal objection to the war though, and that's an objection that I'm inclined to agree with, by the way. But to create a character as inherently twisted as Scorpio, I think that would require deep-rooted trauma stemming back to early childhood development. Especially, it would require an interruption of normal early childhood development of empathy for others. I'm talking within the first 3 or 4 years. I think it would take something like severe emotional neglect by the parents during that age, or it could take the sometimes equally dangerous opposite approach, parents who made him the selfish and entitled centre of the universe and applied no discipline at all. However, in support of Robinson's take, he has stated that director Don Siegel gave him a pair of army boots to wear with his hippie clothes in the role. And there's the fact that Scorpio has acquired and knows how to use several weapons. That alone suggests that he probably has some sort of military experience. So I think a fitting overall explanation for his personal background would be a combination of poverty, poor education, early childhood trauma that shunted his cognitive development of empathy, and later a troubled stint of military service. That background I could find believable for this character. The one-sided depiction of Scorpio as evil and nothing else I consider the Dirty Harry script's biggest intellectual weakness. First, because it reduces the believability of the character. Near enough every aspect of Scorpio is moulded to make us hate him so much that we approve of his suffering and execution. And second, the eye for an eye view on crime and punishment promoted by the script is often paralleled by the worldview of the psychopath themselves. Serial killers often believe themselves to have been intentionally abused by a cruel society that wants to torture them, and so they mistakenly view their own crimes as a justified act of revenge. Thankfully, there are enough little clues in the Dirty Harry film to suggest that Scorpio has a complex backstory of his own. The film doesn't need to dwell on his past because it's not about empathising with the killer, it's a story about saving people from the killer. But the indications of a tragic backstory are there for those who are interested.